Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Sway, and we have our last, for right now, Minion Shakeup chat. We're talking about elementals here. So as a reminder, our season starts tomorrow. This is Tuesday, May 9th. Season starts tomorrow. We are getting phase 1 tomorrow, so that means 6 minion types coming in. And then phase 2 is on the 11th. That's this Thursday. So on Wednesday, we'll receive one more of these Minion Shakeup talks. On the 15th is the next phase. So on the 14th, another Minion Shakeup chat. And on the 22nd, that's the last phase. So on the 20th and the 21st, we'll do 2 more deep dives before we have all of our Minion types in. So this is our last one. Before the new season, we're going to talk about elementals. So personally, elementals may have been one of my favorite minion types just because I feel like there's a lot of variety there. Like between looking at the tier 4 and up minions, or tier 3 and up, I guess, like Cyclone and Wildfire have 2 completely different like minion types that they're good against, and that's just within elemental specifically. Like Wildfire is a fantastic counter for anything where you need a cleave, where like beasts, like summoning boards, you can use a Wildfire, absolutely. Now, Cyclone is great into mech, where you want to like remove a taunted shield. Cyclone can absolutely do that. The Mega Wind Fury, notably, is gone, so a Golden Cyclone will not have Mega Wind Fury. However, I think that I just really loved the variety of what elementals were able to do, and it still seems pretty consistent with that. So here are what's leaving as we know it right now. So on tier 2, the first thing leaving is Party Elemental. I was about to say Party Rock because Party Rocking is no longer, not that it's really been a meta thing, but every now and then it's kind of fun to still try. So Party Elemental is gone, and that was our buffing when you play an elemental. That's the +1/+1 when you play. So sad to see that go because, I loved making the Party Rock jokes, and it was really fun when Party Rocking was a thing with the Molten Rock, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Party Elemental and the Molten Rock on tier 2. But yeah, I'm sad to see that go, but it makes sense. On tier 4, we are losing our Dazzling Lightspawn. There's something kind of similar coming in the new minions, but this was our Avenge unit that gave +1/+1. So it did kind of feel like you tripled into a 4 and you played either Undead or Beast or Mech or something that has a lot of units that are going to die. And then you kind of just scale the elemental in the shop until it hits a point where you can actually start playing elementals. So that's not happening anymore. Lightspawn is gone. You're not getting that Avenge effect. However, we'll talk about the new one when we get over there. On tier 5, we lost Lil Rag. Now, I felt like this was actually a really big loss. The way that I saw it, there were like 3 main ways to scale elementals, right? The Lightspawn, which we just talked about, of that Avenge and having a whole separate board. You could have a demon board, you could have a beast board, you could have an undead board, and just have that at the back of it and passively scale these elementals. And demon was great because then you could eventually get Fellbat and have these really large elementals in the shop to eat. But that's one way of scaling. In addition, we have our Nomi, our classic Nomi, our tier 5, which buffs elementals everywhere as you play the elementals. Of course, not from Discovers, but in the shop. And then we had Lil Rag, which I looked at as a whole separate kind of elemental scaling, because you could run a Lil Rag Bran situation where you play a Tavern Tempest with Bran. Not only do you get the economic value, you also get 5/5 stats with Lil Rag. However, like it could feel a little bit bad if the scaling wasn't there, if the elementals weren't showing up in the shop. If you didn't have all the components, it could feel a little bit bad, but it does feel like a whole method of scaling a board or scaling elementals is going away now. And we have 2 tier 6 units gone, being replaced by 2 new tier 6 units. So Gar on tier 6, who gained the health per elemental played for the elementals on your board, is leaving, as well as Genie, who is a fantastic economy. Not fantastic, I won't say fantastic, but great to play with Lil Rag, where you get the 6/6 buffs, and then also just an economy unit of getting something to your hand. Did feel bad if you were like playing a Nomi situation and the elementals in the shop were very strong and Genie accidentally tripled one of the units that you wanted to triple with like 40/40 in the shop, but you got it at the base stats, which, you're like, okay, it's fine, it's tripled, but I wish it was massively tripled. So in that way, it did feel a little bit bad, but it was helpful in just getting a little bit of economy if you needed it. But those are our elementals leaving, so let's talk about what's coming in. On tier 2, we have our Flourishing Frostling. This is kind of parallel to Party, in my opinion, in a way. So it buffs itself, but just in the way that this is like a tier 2 replacement and has a buff mechanic. So it's a 0-4 base stat and has +1 attack for each elemental you played this game, wherever that is. So we haven't seen the wherever that is card text really outside of Undead. We see that with like the Death Swarmer with Anubarak. So seeing Flourishing Frostling bringing this into Elemental is really interesting. And even if you're not playing Elemental, we use Refreshing Anomaly sometimes. We use the Felemental sometimes just to buff the shop. So could be pretty cute, just temporarily cute. On tier 4, that kind of not quite substitution, but substitution for Lightspawn, we're seeing the Dancing Barnstormer. This is a Death Rattle unit instead of an Avenge unit with 4/2 stats. Elementals in Bob's Tavern have +2/+2 for the rest of the game. So we're seeing a Death Rattle with +2/+2. Of course, we could proc this with Macaw, who's still in the game, which means that max we're getting +4/+4, unless you have a Golden Macaw. But at that point, that sounds like a high roll situation, or maybe like you don't necessarily really want Barnstormer anymore. But regardless, that's +2/+2 per turn at a minimum, right? Of this Barnstormer, assuming that it dies. So, you're getting Lightspawn had an Avenge of 2 for the +1/+1. I like this for the reason of like, if you're playing an elemental board, you don't have a lot of summons. So at a certain point, Lightspawn just kind of, it's like the elemental that doesn't fit on the elemental board because the elementals don't die the same way that Beast, Undead, Demon, Mech do. So it never really fit that vibe. It fit like, let me triple into this or play this early and scale it with other things and then eventually move into elemental. So I feel like the Barnstormer supports more of like being on an elemental board with that Death Rattle. And you can like keep it with Nomi and it's still valuable, and play it with all of your 7 minions that don't summon more minions. So I like it in that respect for sure. It definitely fits on an elemental board better than a Lightspawn did. On tier 4, we have our Upbeat Upstart. So this in my head kind of is similar to Gar. It's a taunt at the end of every 2 turns, so this is an end of turn minion. Set this minion's health to the highest in your warband. So similar in the way that it just buffs health, not attack. It is a taunt, and it mirrors something on your board. So it could be beneficial, and is end of every 2 turns. So this is not an end of turn effect that is helpful with Drakari because it's not adding, it's setting. So you can't double set. It'll be the same. It feels, honestly, like in my head right now, it feels a little bit lackluster. But I mean, it's not, your highest health in your warband may not be, it could be pretty high and it may not be a taunt, and now you have that much health on a taunt, which is nice. But as of right now in my head, this is not the most fantastic unit. If it was attack and health, I think that would be busted though. So curious to see how that one plays. On tier 5, we have our Gusty Trumpeter. This is after you sell 6 elementals, get another random elemental. This feels a lot like Flurgle's hero power. It's going to be after hero power and come here. It does feel like a nice addition to that kind of cyclical nature with, you can play Nomi, you can play Gusty Trumpeter. It's kind of a similar to Genie situation where you're getting something to your hand. However, this is not from dying during combat. This is just from cycling. So you could play Brand, Tavern, Tempest, cycle these things. I think that, and it's specific to elementals, so sell 6 elementals. I think that this may be slightly slow, but we do have like economy, like we have Elemental, that's 2 units out of 6. So it could be pretty good. We also have like the Mistake. That's an all-typed unit that can be sold as an elemental as well. Also, the goal of Nomi in general is to cycle as much as you can. You want to cycle elementals. It would feel bad to go ahead and triple with a base stat from Gusty Trumpeter. But aside from that, it feels like a pretty decent unit. The only qualm I have, right, is like you triple on 4 into a 5 and you get Gusty Trumpeter. That honestly feels pretty bad because you have to sell 6 elementals to get value from it. And unless you also have like a Magmalock or a Nomi, you're not really scaling. You're getting one piece of economy, theoretically two if you get a elemental, per 6 units sold. And that's specifically elementals. So that one feels a little bit lackluster for me off the jump, but would be very interested in trying it out. Now, our 2 new tier 6 units, one of them very fascinating. We're going to start with our Rock. This one to me was like the most similar to Lil Rag in a way. After you play an elemental, give your minions +1 attack, and then it swaps to health next turn. So again, supporting that kind of cycling nature of elementals of playing and selling. And it is kind of nice in the way when I mention it's like Lil Rag of buffing the elementals you already have or buffing your minions, that you already have on your board. It does feel like Lil Rag in the way that it does buff your minions on your board, as opposed to just, the relying on Nomi, relying on Barnstormer, finding elementals in the shop. So you've played out these minions. At a certain point, Nomi will outscale the shop minions from the minions you have on your board, but Rock is a nice little tier 6 that will buff the minions that you already have. Now this tier 6 is one that I'm really interested in. This is the Element of Surprise. This is a Divine Shield 8/8. This minion can triple with any elemental, and that elemental will get Divine Shield as well. So this minion, if you have a pair of something, you can Elemental of Surprise and triple a unit. However, if you have multiple pairs, it will pick one randomly. So just be aware of that. But I think that that's a really fun mechanic, and I like that it has Divine Shield. So like you could triple a Wildfire and give that Wildfire Divine Shield. Even though that Wave Rider is gone, that gave the Wind Fury, that can't happen anymore. But a Divine Shielded Wildfire, I think, is not anything that I can turn my nose up at. Also, just the mechanic of having this minion to be able to triple feels pretty good, because sometimes you end up just in Pair City with just pairs after pairs and no triple in sight. And of course, there are the minions that get better when you triple them, such as Wildfire that impacts both left and right. I'm really stuck on Wildfire right now. Or like a Molten Rock even. You could triple your Molten Rock. It's already built all these stats up. Now you have a Divine Shielded Taunt. Like, that feels pretty dang good. Now, as I mentioned before, I do feel like Elemental is one of the most variable minion types where it can really counter a lot of different things between just the impact of what different minions can do. Like, you're playing a whole elemental board. You have all of the important ones. You have Recycling Wraith, you have Wildfire, you have Cyclone, the ones you want to keep on your board for a long period of time. And your opponents are all playing different things. You can switch the order, not based on, what's strongest, but you can switch the order based on what does best against what your opponents are doing. So if they're doing summoning boards, you lead with the Wildfire. If they're doing just large minions, you lead with the Cyclone. I feel like this is a really good situation to be able to counter a lot of different minion types. Of course, it will be bad when you don't have a lot of shields and someone, poisons, venomouses you. It does feel bad having large minions get killed by venomous. So, of course, that is something to be concerned about. And in general, I do feel like this does well against summoning boards, actually, because of the just way elementals are meant to be scaled in a very large way. And there's only been further support of that in this new shakeup. So I think that you will be able to scale past certain situations. But of course, the high rollers, that's going to be a tough one. Overall, it's pretty hard to say what it's going to be good against and what it's going to be bad against in terms of minion types due to the variety of the minions in elementals. But I think that it's just going to be a fun thing to continue to play. Like I said, I've been a big fan of elementals from day one. So even though it's not the biggest change in the world, I think that it supports the playstyle. I think that there's been a lot of Nomi support here specifically, so excited to play it. In terms of heroes, of course, we're going to go with those economy heroes, But, that being said, economy heroes in the way that, like, Gallywix, Millhouse, not Hooktusk, not discovering heroes. Like, we don't really want that. Not Silas. We don't want that. Because you discover base stats. So you don't want to discover base stats. You want to discover those, or you want to find those buffed minions in your shops. So in that way, economy heroes that allow you to see a lot of shops, whether that's having more gold or, the free rolls, in that way, definitely beneficial. And of course, our summoning heroes, not going to do so well with elementals. Not a lot here. You're going to have 7 units. And those units will not create any more units for you, especially now with Genie gone. So that is going to be a very hard 7 units, and that's it if you're playing a full elemental board. Overall, I like some of these changes. I'm interested in some of the changes. I think that there's been some things that have helped and are going to support an elemental type better. Like I'm 50-50 on the Barnstormer compared to the Lightspawn for the reasons I told you about earlier. The Rock I feel is a fun tech because you can bank things. Like you can bank some elementals to play. Like, okay, say you have a Leroy, right, that you don't want to get Tunnel Blastered, and you have a turn to be able to kind of protect it. Rock switches to health. You play out a Selly, and then all of a sudden Tunnel Blaster won't kill your Leroy. So little things like that, I think, are fun little techs that we can think of as the season goes on. But definitely not the craziest day one switch up, but still always love elementals. Always love Nomi. Very excited to play. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, season starts tomorrow, so we don't have any more of these minion shakeup videos until the day before the following phase. So we'll see you back here. As I mentioned before, these minion shakeup videos are only for right before the release of a phase. So we'll see you back here on the 14th for our demon review, because demons are coming in on the 15th. Aside from that, the minion types that we've already previewed are the ones coming out tomorrow, and we will see how they interact with each other. We'll see how this whole shakeup has gone so far. I have been speculating for like a week now, so I am beyond ready to play these new minions. So I'll see you tomorrow in the Battlegrounds. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.